So welcome to our little create along. I am just so excited that you're here. I was definitely missing being with people and getting to create and chat. And I haven't like pulled out my like paints in a really long time. So I thought it would just be fun to do together today. And I know some of you got the Art of Inspiration journals, and so I wanted to give you a few ideas of how to use them if you had started and weren't quite sure where to go next. Oh, hi Ruth. Oh, she shared her Instagram. Perfect. So we can all follow each other and connect on there afterwards. So yeah, so please feel free to jump in, ask questions, share whatever you like. So, okay. So the Art of Inspiration journals I created to gather ideas because I was just like constantly having like notebooks and like notes in my phone full of random stuff. So I put these together so that I could easily collect everything. And so you can see it's like not a fancy journal. Like I'm not trying to do anything really nicely in here. It's just the idea of like literally getting ideas down and then having sessions today where I actually turn them into art. So yeah, so let's see. Some pages I haven't used, some I have. But yeah, so it's just a place to like stick things and keep them and refer back to things as I am working. And so today, that's what I wanted to do was go through because I've been, putting some ideas down, but I haven't made anything from it. So a lot of these things are from, walks we've been on in nature or when we go to like art galleries. I definitely love to get ideas from art I see there. Where do you guys find ideas when you are like, what inspires you? What gives you ideas?
Definitely nature,
Mm-hmm.
I find myself. Or I've really enjoyed, as I'm like shopping for markers and different things, just picking out different colors that catch my eye.
Oh yeah, I definitely am big on like
Yeah.
starting with a color. Like I just pick a color and I'm like, oh, let's see what I can make with this. Um,
Yes.
yeah.
I find architecture inspires me, seeing
Mm,
details on buildings, things like that that I can incorporate into pieces of art.
very cool. And what type of art do you normally do, Ruth?
I do a lot of mixed media. I'm also a CZT, a Zentangle teacher.
Ooh.
So yeah, so I'm very into, the patterns with that.
Oh, very cool. Oh, so you'll love what I'm hoping to work on today. What else? Anybody else?
Yeah, I feel like it used to be like art museums and things, but now a lot more nature since spring is coming and we're all unable to go to those places right now.
Yeah.
I think the same for me. Oh, I unmute. There it goes. Nature, and then with that, the season. Getting ready for spring, like you'd mentioned, and going to summer. I'm kind of leaning towards more vibrant things now.
Yeah, I think that's so cool how that affects us, like, and affects our art that we might not even realize the difference in things that we're drawn to. And so I think keeping a journal like this is really helpful to see that. And so I have mine labeled for like this season of spring. And so I'll like put the last date here once I finish it. So that I can kind of see like, oh, like that season, like this is what was inspiring me in spring, and this is what inspires me in fall. Artfully Jonesy said, other artists. I'm having really a lot of trouble reading. Yes, I definitely love going to art galleries and even like looking on Instagram and seeing what other people are creating and how, and it is very inspiring for me too. And these I think this like system of collecting ideas is really helpful when you are being inspired by another artist. So this pattern right here came from a piece of art that I had seen at a gallery, but literally it honestly looks nothing like it now once I hand drew it. And now once I'm going to translate it again onto a piece of paper, I'm going to be changing it so many times that it's not copying anymore than maybe if I sat down and was looking at the painting and was drawing it line by line. And so it's a good way to evolve the things that inspire you and make them be your own thing. And so that's what we're going to work on today. So if you have an idea, does anyone like have an idea they like want to work on, or they don't have any ideas at all? Because I can give you a quick exercise to go grab a pattern around you. Do you guys want me to give you that exercise?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So take like 2 or 3 minutes and look around from where you are and see if you can find a shape or a pattern or like a line or something that you really like, and just sketch it onto your paper really quickly. So I'm going to be using this like shape pattern here from this one. These were on curtains in a movie that I watched, and the curtains were like really distracting for me because I was like, gosh, that pattern is so cool. So I did like a quick sketch of them in here. So look around and see if you see a pattern or some lines or some shapes that are looking interesting to you, and just give it a quick sketch onto your page, and that's what we will work with today. And yeah, if you need to like stand up and walk around, that's totally fine.
I don't know if it's just me. I don't see your book large. Like I'm seeing you in the speaker view.
Okay. Do you see my journal at all in your screen?
As part of the gallery strip up at the top.
So if you click on it, it will give you the option to pin it, and that should make it large on your screen.
Okay. Got it.
Did that work? Okay, good.
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then I'll give you a second task if you maybe have a pattern or you found your pattern. Turn around and look around. You can even look at your markers and just see which of your colors you like the most, but look for a couple colors that are interesting to you. So it could be from a plant or from your shirt or a vase, or it could be, just 3 markers that are really standing out to you. So grab a pattern and grab a couple colors. All right, so if you have your pattern and your colors, you can get your colors next if you need a few more minutes. So, okay, so again, these were on a curtain, and so I just sketched out this pattern that they had here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this left page of my journal. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working the pattern and letting it evolve. And so I chose, again, these colors were from a painting, I believe. I got them from a painting. And, oh, I even have a note to do a different color. There we go. And so I'm going to use these colors and mix it with this pattern. And so I'm simply just going to start drawing the pattern on my page and then tweaking it and changing it just a little bit every time and just see what happens and see different ways that I like it, different ways that I don't, what works with my medium. So I am using a mix of tombow brush markers, and these are Japanese brush markers. But you can use crayons, pencils, pens, anything that you want. So I'm just going to go through and see how many different ways I can make this like pattern shape and what it does. And like I said, I started out really literal, and now I am starting to change it up. And see if you're having trouble, you're not sure how far to go with this exercise, see if you can get at least 10 different patterns out of it, or 10 different shapes or evolutions. How are you guys doing? Is anybody feeling stuck? I'm watching the chat too if you guys want to type into the chat. I think this is one of my favorite creative exercises, is just taking a simple shape or line and seeing how many times I can change it. Yeah, I feel like it pushes my creativity so far and really kind of works those muscles. And it's a good thing to do if you just don't know what to do. If you're like, I kind of want to make, but I don't know what I want to make, it's a good like creative warm up. Or if you're like putting too much pressure on yourself, it's a good way to kind of take that pressure off and stretch. This looks like I just drew a really weird foot with a tiny little toenail toe. So I definitely won't be using that unless I want to draw feet. And here's something, if you can see this one right here, I did this and I really liked this first kind of shape I did, and then the second one I did too big and I didn't like it. So I retried it up here and found something I liked more. So if you hit on something that you're like, oh, that's interesting, I kind of like it, but it's not quite right, keep evolving that iteration of your shape, and see where that takes you. This whole thing, looking for inspiration, figuring out inspiration, is just about following the things that interest and intrigue you and seeing where they lead. And as you can see, I'm slowly starting to add in like brand new things as it's going, and my creativity is kind of warming up and it's evolving more and more. All right, are you starting to feel like you're getting some good ideas? You're like going somewhere? Okay, so you can keep going, but I just want to kind of tell you the next steps so you can move on if you're ready. So what I do now is I'm going to look at all of the shapes that I drew, and I could do this for hours, just kind of iterating this one shape, and that's perfectly fine. But if you want to move into the creation phase, you could have a vision and you could have an idea and something that you really wanted to bring to life, and kind of a meaning and purpose behind your art, but you could also just create because it's fun and you saw something that inspired you. And so that is what I want to do with this page. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go through all the things that I just drew, and I'm going to figure out which ones I like the most and which ones I want to keep playing with. And so as you can see, I think it's so interesting. So down here is the first one that was kind of exactly like the curtain, the picture I saw on the curtain. And so, but now as you can see, these are getting so different from it, and they're really, really branching out. And so that's the whole purpose. You're making it your own. And so that's kind of how you go from the something you see that's cool into your own unique art. So like I said, what I'm going to do is I might put like a little star beside them, the ones that I like, and then I want to play with some more. And they might not all go into the same art piece. They might be an idea that you keep for later, but pick a couple and we'll move them over to their own page and start creating a patterned background together. Okay, so I think I have chosen, these are kind of similar. And then this is, more close to the original, but I like the iteration with the lines. And then just these loops. So those are kind of my three ones that I like the most for this time that I'm going to move over. So I'm going to start on my next page. And I'm simply just going to kind of start laying them out. And you can lay them out in a really clear pattern. You could just make lines of each of them. You could spread them out throughout the page. You could create them into a shape. It is really up to you how you want to move on next. But for me, I just want to kind of create a patterned background, and it could serve as its own art print, or it could become uh, a background for something else. I could collage on top of it. It's again, that's totally up to you and kind of the medium you like to work with and how you like to work. So I'm just going to start transferring these over and seeing what happens. And you might want to sketch them out first so that you know kind of how they're going to land on the page, or you might want to go willy-nilly like I am. There's no right or wrong way. But just don't be afraid. How are you guys doing? Are you moving on and creating? Are you feeling good? Are you feeling stuck? What's happening?
I feel really surprised.
Ooh.
I've never done anything like this, and I feel super surprised. Like once I'm just surprised and excited. I don't know what else to say.
That's awesome. I think sometimes we like Lindsay, I know you and I know that you're such a creative person, and I know that this is like in you. It's sometimes just learning the processes to bring it out.
Yeah, the evolving piece was really interesting and trying to, so like the shape that struck me was just this line in the can here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've been playing with. But out of it, as I started to think of different ways that line could be, and then also just understanding it could be a straight line as well, it's just really, it's a cool process because I find sometimes when I sit down to do something like this, I just don't know what to do. So I just get stuck and then it doesn't feel good and then I just don't interact with it. So this is cool.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you just said that, like interacting with it. That's the biggest piece of like, we know we like something, but we just don't quite know why or know what to do with it. And so the more you fiddle with it, um, yeah, the more alive it comes. Anybody else have any thoughts so far?
Yeah, I think the framework's really helpful. Like even just saying like you're gonna do 10 things because then I don't stop when I get stuck at like, 5 in and there's that push to keep going.
Yeah, and you could do, like I said, you could do this at any point, and you could set a timer, like how many can I get in 3 minutes, and just race against yourself. And then do it, set another timer, and how many more can I get this time? There's such good creative activities, especially when you're not thinking of it as like, oh, this is the final piece, and not seeing it so precious. So it's okay to ignore me if you're like working really hard. So this is was inspired by the movie One Night in Miami. And then last night we watched Captain Fantastic on it was on Netflix. I don't think it's a Netflix movie. But it was so good and I have like so many ideas from watching it. Do you guys find movies really inspiring? And if you do, tell me your favorite movies so I can go watch them because I really like being inspired by movies.
I think I'll watch movies differently now like just with this whole process. But I really love You've Got Mail. It's one of my favorite movies in the entire world. Have you seen it before?
It has been so long, but I started watching it again recently, and I don't know why I didn't finish it. Um, that would be really fun for you to go back and rewatch it with this framework in mind and see what came out.
Yes.
So this is also fun and unexpected is now my shapes are interacting with one another. See how these are like building and these are building over here. So as you continue to develop it, see how your piece is coming together to create another new thing. And I'll give you some tips on finding some balance once we get a little closer to the end, once you get a little more into your piece. So if you're worried that it's not looking good right now, this is the messy middle. This is where nothing looks good and we're afraid it's going to be awful. But you have to keep pushing through. Now, do you guys normally create in total silence or do you listen to a podcast, music, TV? What do you guys do?
Definitely usually listening to something,
Me too.
either like old TV shows that I've seen a bunch of times for background noise or like audiobooks recently. A lot of like I've been borrowing them from the library, which is nice.
Oh, that is nice. Are you reading anything good?
Oh, well, I'm currently rereading some books from my childhood because I feel like my attention span is shot. So like just revisiting some things. I don't know if anybody is familiar with Tamora Pierce and like the Elena books, but been revisiting some of those.
Say the name of the books again.
Elena.
Uh-uh.
Hmm.
Vanessa said her
They're
house
fun.
is never silent, but soft music normally. I'm reading Firefly Lane right now so that I can watch the Netflix show when I'm done.
I didn't read that book, but I did start watching the Netflix show. So I can only imagine how good the book is.
Yes, my mom watched the show, and so we were talking about it, and apparently there are some big discrepancies between the book and the show.
That usually happens. It's probably good you're reading the book, but you might be disappointed then when you see the show.
I know, but I already know multiple people have told me how it ends, and so I already know the cliffhanger because it's obviously a book, and so it wraps itself up. So I won't be like on the edge of my seat like everyone else is, not knowing what happens. Okay, so if you end up with a finished piece of artwork, that's fantastic. But if you end up with some ideas, some direction, that is just as fantastic. How are you guys feeling? Are you liking your piece? Do you feel like it's going to turn out to be something? Or maybe your first draft?
I think mine is turning out to be something.
Ooh.
Yeah, I like mine, but I'm thinking about recreating it in maybe like watercolor or something different.
Oh, nice. Yeah, right now, I think mine could work well as a background if I wanted to do something over top of it. I don't think the shapes are quite flowing well enough together for me to be like a finished piece, but I really like the shapes and I will definitely be using them in some other way and some other stuff. I'm definitely not done with these. But I don't know, it could surprise me at the end and come together. Okay, so I'm kind of getting to where my page is a little full. So now I want to look at it for balance and note any really big white spaces or anything that looks really uneven. You know, maybe you have too much of one color in the side, and so you need to balance it out, add in some other colors, or put that color more on the other side. Um, so look around and see. And so I did a lot of mine really big. And so now I need to go through and fill in some of the smaller gaps with this, my shapes just smaller. And don't forget to let things run off the edge unless you want a perfect frame. Make sure things bleed off your edges, because so like this part looks like it's running off the edge, but over here I don't have anything going off the edges.
Okay, so here's a question.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when you have something that you're like, ooh, this is great, and then you do something and it doesn't quite look the way that you anticipated it to? So now it's like, okay, how, like, what's a creative way? Because I'm looking at it right now as like, okay, well, this is, how can I troubleshoot this? Because it doesn't look the way that I want it to, but also kind of acknowledging it's exactly the way that it needs to be. But like, how do you kind of break through that discomfort of like, oh shit, I just totally fucked this up, right?
Yeah. Well, okay, so it's two things. It's one of like not being able to realize your vision. You know, your hand is not quite matching what's in your head. And then another is like, I just shouldn't have put that shape there. And so figuring out how to work around that is easier, you know. But it's that Ira Glass quote. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but he talks about kind of the 10,000 hour theory. And you know, you have good taste and you have the eye and you know what you like, you just don't have the physical skills,
Hmm.
you know, to actually bring it to life. And so it's in that gap period where you're trying to get your skills to catch up to, you know, your brain and what you know it could be or should be or you want it to be. And it's about practice, and just doing it over and over again until it looks the way it starts coming out the way that you want. Does that answer your question? Kind of.
Yeah, yes, it totally does. And it's the second, yeah, that totally does. And also taking time to curate and take and grow the skill too. I really liked that.
Yeah, I think it's a helpful reminder. And, it probably looks better than you think. Like I said, you're definitely in like that messy middle stage where it feels off, but you have to
Hmm.
keep pushing through and keep finishing it, and you'll see. And there's always, I feel like people find when they kind of find their style, they figure out the one thing that makes their art look finished to them. And for me, it's normally paint splatters. Like I feel like things aren't finished until there's like a little paint splatter in the corner or something, and that kind of signifies like a complete piece for me. And so you have to kind of figure out what that is for you too, because maybe it's just missing one little thing that's kind of your signature style, which is easier said than done to figure out sometimes. But it just goes back to that practice piece and trying and trying and trying all kinds of things. And maybe you need to rotate your page around. Maybe you're just looking at it upside down and you didn't even know. Or maybe that new perspective, flipping it, will allow you to see, what you're missing, where the gaps are, especially in a pattern page like this, because you're not creating anything that needs to be, linear or, on the horizon. So flip it around if you need to. All right, as we're getting close to time to finish, how are you guys doing? Do you have any questions, any issues?
You mentioned you might use this as like a background for something. What are some like directions that you might take that in, like layering more marker over, like different mediums?
Oh, that's a great question. Possibly collage, I would say. Now, I could always paint like sections of this so that some of these shapes would just pop through, and that would be super cool. Um, Collaging, actual pieces of paper on here. So this is kind of a background, and they're just like peeking out would be really fun. It kind of depends on the medium that you use. I wouldn't want to put, since these are water markers, I wouldn't want to put any water on them unless I was really careful to like watercolor like around the edges so that, kind of hinders the medium that I would want to use next. But yeah, and I honestly might leave it and then I would iterate again and maybe make earrings from it or a weaving from it, or maybe I'll cut some of these shapes out by hand and then do another collage from it. You can take one tiny idea and literally make 100 things from it. There's no end if you like the idea enough. So the last thing that I'm doing is simplifying my shapes even more so I can make them really small and fill in the gaps. So are you guys getting some ideas of what you can go through next? Oh, thanks for coming, Vanessa. We'll see you later. Um, any ideas for what you can do next? How you can keep iterating?
Yeah, I don't know. Mine turned out kind of like an 80s school picture background.
Oh, I love it. Can we see?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Ooh, I
Probably.
do like it.
So I'm not really sure where I go from there, but it'll be good to have, like looking back, like you said, to generate ideas from the future.
Yeah, exactly. What else? Who else wants to share?
I'll share mine. I turned out making a little elephant.
Oh, it's
Oh wow.
so cute. Oh,
Thanks.
I
I
love
feel
all this like
excited about it.
pretty lines. Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely use that in a lot of different ways.
I played with bringing in some different thicknesses of the pen and got some really different looks from that.
Oh, you did.
Yeah,
Oh, that's cool.
Uh-huh.
that definitely gave me some different ideas.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of too of knowing how our supplies work, because we feel like, oh, that person must have something different than I do, so I need to go buy another supply. And it's like, no, they're just not pressing down as hard as you are. And you can get so much, you can go so much further with your supplies if you do exercises like this and figure out different ways they work.
I'll show you mine. Mine went very geometric. So it was like lots of just squares and different shapes. The pattern that inspired me was I have a little thing of like little letter beads, and so the way they were piled together. But I'm not sure what I'll do with it, but it's been fun.
Yeah, oh, I love how the little squares are like breaking up the big squares.
Yeah.
That's very fun. Yeah, I definitely think I could see you doing like a big, like one as a frame for something else in your art. That's
Yeah.
cool. Well, ladies, I hate to end the evening. This has been so much fun. I don't want to stop, but I want you to be able to get to whatever you have, or you can totally keep going. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you keep creating. And definitely message me if you have any questions, or please post a picture of your final page and tag me on Instagram so I can see and share. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you guys later.
Yes, thank you so much. It was nice.